Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Boys, Season 2, Episode 3. It's called Over the Hill with the Sword of a Thousand Men. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And I'm not used to preparing for such a long title.
Yeah, I was going to say that is really long. I think I thought that on the last one as well. That one felt longer than expected, because I don't look at the titles before I watch the episode. I just click play.
Yeah, that's a long title, but I think this is easily the best episode of the three.
Yeah.
I mean, almost to the point where I'm wondering if they maybe would have went with less on week one, but they decided to go up to three because they knew three had the best sort of big cliffhanger and all the big action and the kind of an emotional high point that wasn't offered in the first two, and this was an intentional hook, like, hey, come back next week.
It's possible where, obviously this is an experiment for Amazon. Especially with this show, to switch to weekly. I mentioned at the end of the last review how some people aren't taking it so well. So maybe it is a conscious choice of, well, if we only give them one, maybe we don't retain enough. If we give them three, it feels like they'll come back for the rest.
Yeah, a bunch of crybabies. So a lot of stuff in this one to talk about, and I think this one solidified what they're doing with some of the characters in a way that wasn't necessarily not clicking before, but was just undefined as of yet. And then this episode kind of really brought them together. And I'm speaking largely here about Huey and Butcher. Their conflict, which, you know, at the start of this, they're already on a boat, and I knew there was going to be an episode on a boat because I did see a clip from this episode. I didn't see any trailers for this season, but there was a clip I saw on Twitter.
I have seen the odd screenshot from a meme shitposting group I'm part of that I kind of forgot to mute, so I just have to scroll past. And every so often I'll just see a screenshot, but completely out of context. They'll give me the dialogue, but use it in a whatever meme way they are, so it doesn't really ruin anything.
Yeah, so there was one, you know, it's a big moment later on in the episode, which luckily didn't spoil any of the actual drama of the episode.
Does it happen to involve a whale?
It does, yes. It involves the we'll call it the penetration of the whale.
Poor Lucy.
So, but their relationship in this episode, which, I mean, I liked what it was digging at with those two before. You know, we talked about it a bit in the last episode, but I think this one didn't redeem Butcher. Butcher still has all the problems that he had before, but it gives us enough to still not hate him. It gives us enough in this episode to think, well, he's still going to be there for Huey and the others, and therefore we kind of still give a damn.
For now, right?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
That's, you know, the more I thought about this, because obviously we spoke last episode about, is he going to cross a line? You know, is there going to be a point where he gets too selfish? And I think them reinforcing the fact here that, no, he'll still, you know, protect his crew tells me, no, at some point he's making that choice, and, you know, he'll put one of them at risk to get revenge.
The moment in this episode, though, where he sort of does the selfless thing, where and the show is set up so well of how dangerous Homelander is, right? How if you confront Homelander, you're basically risking death at any point. So Butcher just, you know, stepping out and call him, well, C-bomb, I can't say it, but
as Butcher tends to do,
as Butcher often does. Also, Butcher made me realize that I don't use the word diabolical enough.
It was a thing that was a lot last season that he did, and I hadn't forgotten because there'd been enough memes about it. But I don't think we'd had one yet this season until that moment where he steps out.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first half of their stuff in this episode, it boils up to they're on the boat, they're waiting for the CIA, whoever, to show up to take the brother, right? Kenji, I think his name is. And there's a lot of bickering, but the big thing that happens, of course, Nell said to the plot is that the V compound, what's it called?
Compound V.
Compound V. Oh, it's still a bit red. Okay, I was close. All right. So the Compound V gets out to the public that that's what's creating superheroes, and we'll get to the actual main meat of that later. But this side of it, Huey sees it on the news and is like freaking out, and he's like, you know, he calls Annie, and then he's with the others, and Mother's Milk is like, how's he going to react to this for a second? Because he looks kind of disturbed, but then he hugs him and he's all happy. Frenchie's happy, he kisses him on the mouth. And Butcher just kind of no-sells it. He just like, nice job. Yeah, it's alright, I suppose.
I particularly enjoyed the dialogue here because he goes, nice job. And I think his Mother's Milk's like, really? The kid's just done what you've been trying to do for years, and that's the best you can do? He goes, alright then, really nice job.
Yeah. So you have that bubbling over throughout, and I think what I liked about this is as it progressed, because we had the big silly moment, of course, where Keiji gets out of these restraints using the can of, it wasn't Red Bull, it was their fake version of superhero Red Bull, but
I think it had a A-Train on it, was it, or was it Homelander?
I think it was Homelander. Yeah, it was like super.
I assume there's like each flavor has a different hero on.
Oh, very possibly, yeah. But he uses that to cut out of his tape because he's got like one finger free, so he can just get the can over and use that to cut himself out. And he ends up, causing chaos. But at the same time, of course, the Deep shows up and we have a swarm of sharks, or a school of sharks, I suppose is the correct term. Hitting the boat's sinking. They go in the little boat, the lifeboat, and they're off. I mean, it's not really a lifeboat. I mean, I realize
it's a little speedboat that the yacht has.
Yeah. But in the context of this scene, it's a lifeboat because the boat is sinking.
In the way they use it, yes, yeah. But fundamentally, it's a recreational life. Damn it, you got me to it. It's a recreational speedboat.
So they're speeding off, and the whale comes out, and it's this thing where Homelander just rams into the whale because the Deep stands on top of the whale with his hands in his hips, all like hero pose.
Sorry, Butcher rams into the whale, not Homelander.
Sorry, Butcher. Yes, you're right. Butcher.
I mean, Homelander would definitely ram into a whale, don't get me wrong, and wouldn't even think about it. But
he would, yes. But he stands all there because he comes out of the water on the back of the whale, and then he stands atop it thinking that he solved the problem, and Butcher just rams into it. And there's something.
You can see the fear on the Deep's face just before he's like, "Oh no, what are you gonna do?"
There's something fundamentally absurd about them having to crawl out from the stomach, essentially, of this whale. I mean, Mother's Milk, I think, comes out with, I think it's like whale intestines are just kind of like around his neck.
Yeah, it looks good.
But when they go back inside, because Butcher goes out to try to get Huey out, and Huey's not coming, he's like, "No, I'm good."
He's in shock.
They're literally inside a whale, so we have like a set's been built, like a little set's been built of the innards of a whale, where they're just surrounded by blood and flesh.
They've got like a heart still beating next to them that is pulsing, and and you've got the animatronics of that going at the side. Looks great.
Yeah, super stuff. And I love because there's a moment where Butcher comes out, and I was actually thinking to myself, like, yeah, Butcher's not the man to kind of try to give him a pep talk right now. And I kind of really appreciated that Mother's Milk actually goes back in, and because even though they kind of went along with Butcher last episode after the revelation about Becca, clearly in this episode they're all on Huey's side when the news breaks of what's happened in the real world. And then Huey's like, there's a little conversation he has with Butcher afterwards, like, "Hey, Huey, like, he's at breaking point, and you're going to have to like keep him on." And he says that he's your canary, and he's like kind of his conscience, and if you let him go, then who's going to let you know that you're going off the deep end, kind of thing. Yeah. But it's a really, it was sort of bringing things in that I kind of felt like were bubbling up to in a way that started to feel really natural, in a way that maybe the first episode, which I complained about, I felt it was just kind of stalling a little bit. And what's exciting here is that the seven not all, because there's not seven of them right now, but all the ones who are around are all coming to deal with this. Again, it ties into their plot, which we'll get to. Yeah. But they're all coming, and there's a moment where I sort of realised, like, wait, the entire like team of essentially villains are on the way, and Season 1 did a really good job of kind of never having this kind of crop up, because for a lot of the season, the seven didn't even know most of these characters existed. It wasn't until late on in the game that they even knew Butcher was a thing or any of the others.
And it wasn't a problem that they weren't, interacting much last season.
No.
Because it made sense.
But when I realised that's kind of what was at least been teased to happen. Like, I mean, they might be gone by the time they get there, but we end up with this sort of chase throughout the tunnels where they're kind of, looking around, and ultimately we get in this moment where Annie runs into Huey, and he's all happy to see her. And earlier on in the episode, he had this kind of like breakdown moment about the Billy Joel music video, where he's saying,
so someone this season's got a thing for Billy Joel.
Well, yeah, thematically it came into play here, where he kind of, what was it he says? He's "You're my second wind," and basically tells her he loves her, not by saying it directly, but he kind of says, "Oh, when something happens to someone you love, like something happened to you," so he kind of like says it in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
And she blasts him, and I think we all kind of know that she's done this because she knows someone's either watching or listening. Right?
She knows Homelander's there. He doesn't, because he just thinks it's her, and she's come because of the message that he sent her. But we know obviously they're all being hunted, and Homelander can absolutely hear this because it's Homelander.
This wonderfully dark scene where Homelander's like, "Okay, you know what? We've had enough problems with this guy. Starlight, kill him right now." and tries to make her. And then when she's sort of clearly hesitating for all the right reasons, he then says, okay, here's some incentive. If you don't kill him, I'm going to kill both of you. And the entire time, we see that Butcher and the others are around a corner in the sewer system, and they're clearly hearing all this. And obviously, I'm not expecting Huey to actually die, although it'd be a ballsy-ass move if that happened here.
It crossed my mind that, I mean, they could. There's enough of the rest of the cast that they could get away with it.
And I was sort of thinking, okay, but I'm still expecting, deep down, I'm expecting somehow to get out of this situation, but I'm not really sure how they're going to do it. So when it all kind of boils down to Butcher taking the risk of confronting Homelander, he doesn't get everyone else involved. They're still hiding back there, but he comes out and gets his attention, and it's such a sacrificial kind of moment where he's willing to do this that, like, Butcher up until now this season has been very hard to sympathize with. He's been very hard to feel any empathy for. Because despite the fact that you understand why he's doing a lot of what he's doing, he's very selfish. It's all about his one goal and that no one else matters. In this moment, given the conversation he had with Mother's Milk, it all kind of boils up to this where he does something for Huey to kind of maybe regain his trust, even though it might kill him, even though it might be the end of him. And so regardless of he might still screw up later, it doesn't change the fact that in this moment, this could have been the end of him. This act might have ended his life. But of course they've got a bit of a game plan in their back pocket where they've actually basically let out Kimiko's brother, who comes out because what does he say? Butcher's like, all right, have at it or something, and Kenji
drops the roof on him,
drops the concrete on him, and then a bus, I think it came down on top of it.
Truck, bus, something,
and obviously we know he's going to be fine, but yeah, this has probably slowed him down a little bit, so they've got a chance to skedaddle.
A few seconds.
Yeah. So, and
worried for Starlight after this, right?
Oh yeah, definitely worried for Starlight after this. But I think maybe the interesting thing, we go back to talk about the other side of this, but after this, we get a real sense of what Stormfront's actually like, which...
Yeah, just before we move on to Stormfront, I just want to talk a little bit about the something on the Butcher and Huey relationship. Specifically the idea of him being the canary. Because I'm assuming this is referring to the old, the canary in the mine shafts story, where the miners would take the canary, and if it was, I don't know if it was like the poisonous gases or it ran out of air or something, the canary would die, and that would tell the miners that area is not safe. And the point of that is, okay, if the canary, if the canary dies, it's too far. So this is, it's the idea of almost, okay, you want Huey alive because it keeps you good for now, but it's almost like, okay, he's going to die eventually is almost the point of that story, right? With the canaries there. That's when that's when it's worked.
I don't think that's what Miller's Milk's trying to say, though. I mean, I get why you're reading into it that way. I don't think that's the point he's making, though.
No, I don't think it's what he's intentionally trying to say, but I think it's something that stood out to me, and just in the writing in general, the thematic point of it was interesting to me that it came up like that. I feel like there might be a point where Butcher intentionally uses him that way.
He very well might, but I don't think that should cloud the actual genuine moment that he has here in this episode.
No, of course not.
Because it's easily the best character moment he has so far this season.
Yeah, I don't think it undermines that. For me, it's adding something for later, in my mind at least.
Because this episode for me was so head and shoulders. I mean, I enjoyed episode 2 more than 1, but I think this episode's head and shoulders above both of them. This was kind of back to why I liked The Boys. It was like, oh, it can still do this. I think episode 1 does suffer a lot in hindsight because it really does feel like they were just kind of spinning their wheels for an episode. And it's frustrating because I don't feel that Butcher's absence for an episode was actually utilised, because it sounds interesting on paper. How did they handle it or cope without Butcher? But in actuality, what they did was, they didn't do anything without Butcher. They just kind of hung around and were essentially waiting for Butcher to show up.
We kind of went over this in the first episode. I liked that personally, that ultimately, they couldn't function without him right now.
You can make that point without actually making us suffer the pain of having to watch them.
Did not find it painful.
Do nothing for an episode. But... And it's not that I think Butcher needs to be there for things to advance, it's just the writing choices in that episode are the problem. It's not that these characters, I don't think, can anchor the show on their own, because I think they can. But, no, so this moment's wonderful. But then we find out what Stormfront's like. Because Stormfront, as it turns out, is actually exceptionally violent, brutal, and it's not just that there's innocent bystanders dying as like happenstance during the fight. She is basically just willingly killing people intentionally. It's like she wants to get a few extra kill points on the way to killing Kenji.
Yes, and let's not forget she's then incredibly racist.
Oh, she is very racist, yes. At the end of it, she calls him a yellow bastard, is the line she has before she kills him. Which is after, by the way, to stop him using his powers, she snaps both of his wrists. And then mocks the fact that he can't use his powers.
Yeah.
So it's this thing where the show... I mean, we were kind of speculating what she really likes. We've not really seen her like morals yet. But all of her interactions up until this point have been kind of poking at the sort of things that we feel about Vought and the way that Starlight feels about Vought. So it's almost like okay, maybe she's a good person. I mean, she's very obviously confrontational about it, but maybe she's got the right ideas. But then we see this and it's like, oh no, she is a complete and utter psychopathic bitch.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was getting at last episode, where we know she was put there by, Edgar. She's an inside man, so to speak. And I'm like, I would not be surprised to learn that maybe she's, the granddaughter of Vought or something, and that's why she's
which actually
does
shed a new layer onto that scene where she accused Starlight of being a spy for the higher ups. It puts a bit of an ironic twist on that, if that is indeed the case. I think more interesting though is the way she seems to challenge Homelander, where she'll happily talk back to him for a start, but then when he shows up here saying, "Hey, I said he was mine," because he wanted to kill him, she's like, "Well, too slow, Gramps," and kind of snooze you lose, I think was the exact phrase. And he does not look happy. He's a bit miffed at this.
He often looks unhappy, to be honest.
I thought our powers looked good though, and I especially like the sequence when they're going up the building where we actually look from the outside and we just see the carnage from the explosions and the lightning flashes.
By floor, yeah. I like the line. It's like purple. Just makes it a little bit more distinct, right? Gives it some color to it.
I mean, it looked good before that. The way she was just blasting things, and she was, like I say, she was going out of her. This isn't like in an action movie where some innocent bystanders are collateral damage. She was specifically saying, "Hey, I might as well kill a few innocent people on my way." As she's like targeting them.
It was like she knows they're going to get blamed. The deaths are going to get blamed on the terrorists anyway. So it's as far as she sees it, I can only assume it's free reign to have some fun. Yeah,
she might actually. I mean, maybe not worse than Homelander. Maybe that's not quite the right phrase, but on par with Homelander.
I mean, who knows? She might be worse than Homelander. At least
I don't know. Homelander's...
but let me explain. Homelander is a sociopathic monster, but at least we know that's from a lack of understanding. It's this lab upbringing, right? I understand why Homelander is the way he is. He doesn't hate people, in the same way. He just thinks he's better. He's superior, and because that's how he was brought up. He is superior in a lot of physical ways, right? Because of his powers. And that's just... I can understand his mindset. Whereas, and Stormfront, is literally like racist here at the end, and in a way that Homelander isn't. I mean, I'm not saying he's good, but what I mean is he's racist in a very specific way against humans, right? Everyone is below him. There's no hierarchy below that. He just doesn't care. If you haven't got powers, you're not worthy. Whereas Stormfront seems to have like actual mindsets of why she does things. She has opinions beyond just, sociopathic lab upbringing. At least it seems that way to me right now, which might make her, while her actions may not necessarily be worse, might make her worse in the sense that it's the scarier evil is the one that you can comprehend it. So and it makes and it because it doesn't make any sense. This one, it's incomprehensible. It's like it's a bit scarier. Whereas Homelander's makes a lot of sense. It's just I could see the logic of it.
I don't know if worse is the right term. I feel like I don't think it matters ultimately why either one is the way they are. If like they're doing these horrific, violent, and they think they're better than everyone. Regardless of why they think they're better than everyone.
Okay, I guess I would say it boils down to Homelander. I think it's very personal. It's just about him. It's petty ego, right? Which is why he does everything. Even every terrible thing he does kind of boils down to that. Whereas Stormfront might actually have an agenda, which I think makes it worse to me.
Worse from a moral level, maybe, but like...
Not necessarily worse in action, no.
but from an effect on the world side of things, I don't think it matters. That's why I corrected myself when I said worse, because I don't actually think you can actually technically be worse. You can get to the same result in a different way, I suppose. You can have different motivations, different reasons. But like, I mean, I guess by saying you understand, that's almost like saying that Homelander in some way could theoretically be redeemed if he somehow learns at some point.
No, I don't think he is redeemable by any means. I just mean there is a lot of look of the
which, by the way,
system of his upbringing that I can understand why he is.
He's still chugging that milk. I just wanted to point that out. He was still chugging the milk.
You're noticing it now. I've said it, aren't you?
Yeah, he's still chugging the milk.
He always just has a bit of a look when it's just normal milk. Afterwards, he just a slight look of disappointment. Although, how good is his acting?
Oh no, it's great. There's moments. Because he was even making fun of Homelander was making fun of Butcher when he was like, "Oh, hey, I had breakfast with the missus today. Pancakes. They were delicious." And the way he sort of emphasized the roll of the tongue on delicious. Really good stuff. But I mean, to go back to Stormfront, no, we see her making the speech on TV. This is why I think the comparison to Homelander is kind of interesting, even though she is different in some ways. Is the idea that she can also do the PR bit, almost like Vought are kind of prepping her to be the replacement to Homelander. And Homelander, it looks like he's kind of sensing that. He's seeing someone who's kind of challenging him in a weird way.
There's a threat.
She's challenging him as a public figure. She's challenging him as being powerful. And she's challenging him in a way that the public are meant to know about. Like, she's also even as vile as he is, in a way that it's like, oh wait, this is actually threatening because she's like me, which actually I think is interesting thematically. Because in the first half of the episode, before he interacts with everyone else, because he's actually, he's still at the house, he's away from everyone else, while this whole, the story breaks and all that about the Compound V, he actively is trying to make his son like him. He's trying, and we'll get to the funny moment, but he's trying to make the son like him, and he wants his son to be like him, so he's not he's not the only one anymore, right? So there's kind of almost a weird hypocrisy later on where he finds someone, not the exact same power set, but he finds someone who is oddly very close to him in terms of power level, attitude, how awful they are, good at being the company PR person.
And all of a sudden he's like, maybe I don't want this.
Yeah, maybe I want to be the only one. But of course we have to talk about, I mean, I do have a critique about this scene actually, is that I think in the dialogue he says, your mother's never brought you up here before. And obviously, okay, they're up high somewhere. I was expecting when it eventually cut like out and revealed where they were, it was going to be like silly high. The fact that it was just the roof of the house made me feel like you shouldn't have teased it in the dialogue. I think the reveal would have worked better if he hadn't said up here.
That's quite possible because, like, don't get me wrong, it's a house. It's not like it's small, but it's not stupid. Like, people stand on house roofs for various reasons.
I was half expecting the camera to pull out and to be at the top of like a dam or something like that, or something sillily.
Yeah, like I've stood on top of a house, a roof like this before. It's not that big a deal. And it was only because the dialogue teased it, and then because it pulled. So when it pulled out and it was just the top of the house, I'm like, this doesn't feel that epic. It doesn't feel as silly funny as I thought it was going to be when it pulled back. However, the visual of the in-camera shoving the son off the roof, where he just lands on the ground with a thud, cracked me up. Oh, that was so good.
And then the mom comes right, Beckett runs out and she's like, oh no, what the? And he's like, he's fine. And of course the powers do kick in, the heat vision, the eyes glow red, and he's like, F off, get away from me, I don't want you here.
I love that he's like, there's like a scratch on him, look, he's my son. And she's like, he's not breathing.
But he does shove him on his ass though, which does imply that he's going to have that strength.
And then he has the glowing eyes, which shows, okay, he's getting there.
Yeah,
and Homelander's loving this. He's like, finally, anger. That's what does it.
Yeah, and maybe he will come to the realization, if he's not already starting to think about the fact that this is someone who could put him down later. This is someone who could fight him when he's of age. So if he ends up siding with the good people, with the side of right, if as it were, then hey, maybe he's actually creating his own nemesis here. He's creating his own antagonist. Which is
quite possibly,
which is something that maybe he'll come to realize and potentially question as time goes on. But no, all that stuff was good. All the stuff with Stormfront was great. Everything, and like I said, the epic nature. And I think obviously the other thing we have to mention here is that with Stormfront killing Kenji, Kimiko now has a personal vendetta against one of the seven. She now has a nemesis of her own, in the same way that Butcher has Homelander. You know, last season Huey kind of had it with A-Train, all that that's kind of went away because Huey gave up the revenge side of things as much, but
yeah,
it really sets up a personal thing for her. And we see that when she's on the TV, like giving the PR speech of, because they're helping the victims of, you know, all the carnage, and she's like handing out, you know,
water bottles and
and dinners and stuff. Yeah. So I think that's good. I think that really sets up kind of a lot of the big stuff for the season. And yeah, like I said, everything with Homelander was good. Everything with Huey and Butcher, I thought in this episode was great. Very little of this episode felt like it wasn't important and didn't feel like it. You know, everything felt like it paid off. I thought all the action once the fight really broke out with Stormfront, and there was actual, you know, back and forth and trying to use Kenji using his powers, Kimiko running around, jumping, and all the rest of it. It felt like a real proper scrappy fight in a way where the first two episodes, you know, it kind of, I'd forgotten like what this show can do when it decides to actually have a big budget fight scene, and you know, and maybe yeah, okay, we can't have them every episode, and that's okay, but it really felt like a lot of payoff happened in this one.
It was good, and then you have, like, you know, just smaller moments that were just there to be funny, and that's okay, like the film pitch.
Oh yeah,
just before they find out the news.
Yes, that actor who's been in a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And he's doing the storyboards.
And then sings Hans Zimmer's name at the end.
Yeah, right before he says it's called Dawn of Something, and I started laughing.
Did you see the logo behind it?
No, I didn't. No, I don't think
it was a dark. It was a dark red 7 on a dark blue background.
Okay.
Very much the exact color palette of the Man of Steel logo.
Interesting. And then Stormfront pulling him up because all the female characters are all
written like shit.
Yeah, basically, yes. Actually, wasn't there? Oh yeah, it was later. It was the Deep that's had the line that made me cackle in a really sort of like it made me cackle just how tone deaf he is. Because he shows up in Starlight's immediately, what are you doing here? And like immediately starts to confront him. And Deep's saying, "Oh no, I've joined this, you know, this cult." Or the Stormfront figures it out, but
Church of something.
Yeah, Church of something. And the Deep's like, "Oh, I'm doing this, and I want to be back in the 7." And Starlight's like, "You're never gonna be back in the 7." And when he's speaking to Homelander, and he says, like, you know, I want to right the wrongs to every. What was the way phrase? Because the phrasing, it was the very specific phrase is what made me laugh. It was the way he said, "the females that I have wronged," or something like that. He said it in a really weird way that was like, I don't think you quite actually understand the problem. Yeah. Wait, it was the way he said the females. It was so tone deaf in the way he said it.
And then immediately right after, it tries to make it just a bit sad for the Deep as well, because you know, Homelander's like, right, you stay out here, you know, just can't have you in there, you know, causing tension, but just wait out here, you know, watch our backs. And then he's like, sort yourself out, your guild's showing. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and everything with him so far has been about him being ashamed of his body and his gills, and so that's a plot point. We should mention A-Train is struggling to use his powers. He's having like panic style attacks when he tries to use his powers. And he's trying to hide it, but you know, not going super well.
Yeah, and obviously he knows Starlight is the one that's leaked all this to the press.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole scene where Gus comes in. Forgive me, Edgar.
Stan or Edgar. Yeah.
Well, Stan Edgar, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you to refer to, either will do.
Yeah, but the way you said that, it was like, it's Stan or Edgar, doesn't matter which. Like,
I mean, it doesn't matter which you call him.
But he comes in and he's trying to like make a big speech, and Homelander basically says, "Nah, you're not part of this team. Like, you know, that's like, it doesn't matter where we came from. This is that's the big thing I get about the speech of them, which we should probably get the point across here, is that they effectively have countered the story with a really good bit of PR where they've stopped this supervillain. Although, notably, despite Homelander's insistence, even the news report in the end was saying super terrorist, not super villain. I thought that was a little touch that was nice. But he's
lost that battle.
Yeah, but they claim not to have known, and you know, because it cuts to Starlight's reaction to that, where she's like, "No, that's bullshit. He totally knew. Like this is absolute nonsense." But they claim not to have known, and Stormfront's like, "No, like, but we're here, we're heroes, and we've done this. We saved people today from this terrorist." When, if you go back and check the footage, which we can, I am pretty sure almost every single bit of human life or human casualty was the result of Stormfront, or at least one of the other 7, and not him, not Kenji.
It was, and that is, if I recall, the entire plan that they had was, right, get a super terrorist, blame some deaths on them. That'll get us in the army because they need us to protect them now. So
Yeah.
causing some damage is exactly what they needed.
So no, I thought this was a real. I mean, the return to form was a bit harsh. 'Cause I thought episode 2 was fine, but I think some of the spark is what I was really missing, and I don't know if it is. I think it may just be the creative choice to try and do an episode without Butcher, without having anything of consequence really go on with the main group. I think hampered episode 1 a lot. I think if you'd sort of combine 1 and 2 together, and this was episode 2, I think I'd have zero complaints. But I mean, as it is, it doesn't really matter that much now. We're at this point now, and we can go forward here. But I love this episode.
And now we get to experience driving a speedboat through a whale anytime we want.
Yes, we get to enjoy that. Yes, and it is weird because episode 4 is not there, and we'll be waiting for that, which drops on Friday, and it does drop early on Friday, so we can actually review that on Friday and have it out sometime. Well, actually, no, it won't be out Friday. It'll be early Saturday. It goes out, but as opposed to, you know, when a show airs on like a Friday night, say we won't do it until Saturday, then it'll go out on Sunday. Would be the usual sort of. So it's a day earlier than it normally would be because it goes up early in the morning.
But we should be recording Friday night, so
yes.
You should get it sometime on Saturday, I assume.
Yeah, so that'll be the thing going forward. But I thought this was great. This was everything I want from this show, and
yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. You realize it's weird that it's not all there to just go to the next one. Now it's new for this show. Obviously, it's not weird in general, but you get into a mindset of how to watch a certain show and just what to expect. So it is different, but I'm kind of glad for it. You know, I like knowing I've got another month of this to look forward to.
Yeah, and I speculated at the start that they chose to go up to episode 3 because they knew this was kind of the linchpin of hooking people. Alternatively, it is possible that they shot it and wrote it knowing it was going to be this way. I don't think they did because I don't know if the decision was made much later to do this.
I am under the opinion of the decision to spread it out was based on certain global events.
Yes.
They have less content ready.
Keep in mind, they were shooting this season, I think, before season 1 even started airing. Or went out. It wasn't airing because it all came out at once.
I think it was right after or right before. It was around that time that they were talking about it.
I don't think that they knew it was going to be spread out like this. But I'm all for streaming shows going week to week. I think it keeps the conversation alive for the duration of the show. And
say whatever you want about The Mandalorian, that was as successful as it was because it was around for weeks. You know, it dominated the culture for months, not just, oh, hey, we'll all talk about it for a week and then forget about it for a year and a half.
Even from a promotion standpoint, it means Amazon get to promote it every week with a new episode saying, hey, and it reminds everyone it exists. So even if you haven't been watching it since the first episode went up, if you jump in episode 5, those first 5 episodes are there to watch. So it's kind of...
I know some people are annoyed that, now I've got to keep my Amazon subscription for 2 months instead of having a free trial for a week to watch. I'm like, grow up.
I mean, they should be incentivizing that, quite frankly.
That's kind of how it works. If you're really that bothered, then you can be patient and wait till the last episode goes up and watch it all then.
Yeah, you've still got that choice if you want to. I'm all for more streaming shows going weekly. In fact, and maybe a part of this is a selfish thing because it's much easier to review them on this YouTube channel if every show was weekly, because the binge shows are a pain to cover sometimes. But
I think
what it
it's
is.
As well. I prefer the conversation weekly. I think it gets better, to sit with an episode. And we've got, it's only a couple of days now, admittedly, but you've got some time to sit with each thing, think about it. Occasionally, we'll have ideas, over the time, between episodes that we don't mention on the review because we're not thinking about now. But I won't be actively thinking about this show for the next few days. But something might just pop into my head at some point, and it'll be there by the time I watch the next one. It'll inform something in the next discussion.
Yeah, so there you go. That is episode 3 of The Boys. I think the other thing we didn't mention is we didn't mention some of the other reactions to the news breaking, like Starlight freaking out, watching the TV, being all happy, and A-Train coming to talk to her about it. And it was basically, there was nothing super notable to mention. It was kind of a repeat of the last time where she kind of says, hey, you knew about this, that I had it, so it's kind of on you too, so they'll kill you as well. So
Yeah. Maeve was lucky that Homelander hadn't seen the news because it meant she could distract him away from
that's right,
who Elena was.
Because he hears the name and she's like, it's an old friend. He's like, since when do you have friends? But then she brings up the news and it completely takes him off track. So I'm sure it's something we'll revisit. But I think, again, they've done such a good job of setting up the danger of Homelander that you were kind of on the edge of your seat for a second there when he was asking questions about her. It was like,
Yeah.
So, good. But yeah, that's episode 3 of season 2. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Please do like. Liking is super important on YouTube. It is the most easiest and the free way to support us and help us keep finding new audience members. But you can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailedFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. And you can get some bonuses for your trouble. Otherwise, get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?